It's my pleasure to be interviewing Alex Sobel, a British MP, but not only an MP from the Labour Party, which is the ruling party in Britain these days. He's also the head of the Interparliamentary group supporting Ukraine or on Ukraine. I'll ask you to tell us a little bit about that. But anyway, we're here at the Odessa Security Forum, and I had the great pleasure of moderating a panel in which Alex also spoke. So, greetings, welcome to Odessa. And why did you come? You knew that there's bombing, there's danger, but you risked it, and you're here in Odessa.
Well, I'm leading a parliamentary delegation of my group, the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Ukraine, which obviously is there to support Ukraine in this most difficult time. But the Black Sea is an incredibly important region, not just for Ukraine or for Europe, but the whole world. It is the breadbasket of the world. It supplies the Middle East, it supplies Africa with grain, as well as Europe. And without Odessa, without the Black Sea region, the world would undoubtedly be in huge food crisis. So not just now in this particular period after the invasion by Russia, but actually going forward, this is going to be an incredibly important region. So it's important for me to come. This is my 5th visit to Ukraine since the full-scale invasion, my 2nd to Odessa. So I've got used to how things are here, and it's important to come to show your support, but also to meet with regional governments, to meet with NGOs and businesses, and to try and see how we can support from the United Kingdom.
Okay, what were your key messages this morning at the panel on which in which you took part?
Well, I think the 2 major things that happened this year from the United Kingdom in terms of Ukraine is we signed the 100-year agreement between our Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Zelensky, between our 2 governments. It has 9 key pillars, which are very broad-ranging: defence, office, security, very obviously, but trade cooperation, cultural cooperation, in intelligence cooperation, whole range of areas. And it's not a short-term agreement because of the invasion, it's a long-term agreement between our 2 countries. And the second thing is that our Prime Minister, after President Zelensky came from Washington, I think now nearly 3 months ago, came to London, and the Prime Minister announced that he, with President Macron, would form the coalition, the willing to support Ukraine. And that's a big move in terms of the geopolitics of Ukraine, because effectively it says that Europe, with others, but Europe will lead and bear the brunt, and the United Kingdom will be at the leadership of that alongside France. And those are the 2 important messages here, that the defence security architecture of Europe is changing. It is pivoting towards Ukraine. In our own country, we have the strategic defence reviews being announced on Monday. That is being very strongly shaped by the war here in Ukraine.
Are you relieved that Germany is now more obviously a part of this coalition?
I think Germany is a really important country. It's very welcome, the announcement alongside the United Kingdom, France and others, that those that have long-range missiles, that the Ukraine can use them fully. They don't have to limit where those missiles are fired. And Germany was a core part of that. They have a very important manufacturing capability in terms of long-range missiles. So we're seeing big moves from Germany, big historical moves, as we've also seen from Sweden and Finland, who've effectively given up the neutrality to join NATO and work more strongly for Ukraine. These are big pivots in Europe and important pivots.
So you're the chair of an interparliamentary group that supports Ukraine. How did you end up in that role? What got you interested in Ukraine?
Well, my father's side, his parents came from Lviv, and on my mother's side, her grandfather came from Zhytomyr Oblast. So I have Ukrainian ancestry alongside all of my family. So it's very natural for me to support Ukraine, although in my living memory, none of my family lived in Ukraine. My father's side, they left in 1942. But, the memory is strong, and we felt it very strongly both in 2014 and in 2022. And, my mother lived in the Soviet Union, and we have an understanding of the dynamics that are at play. So I felt it was important for me, with that lived history in my family, to come forward and take on this role when they were looking for a Labour co-chair to balance the fact that we'd had Conservative co-chairs for probably 10 years in the group. So it's important to have more political balance, more cross-party support, more consensus
Right.
within Parliament, and more leadership. Cross-party, there was consensus, more cross-party leadership. Yeah.
And you're in a city which has this multinational, multi-ethnic background and face, Jewish humor and tradition and trade and the sea, and a very special place, shall we say. But are you, as a representative of the Labour Party, are you happy to see that during the war, Ukraine has crystallized into a political nation, as opposed to one asserting ethnocentric, shall we say, values over inclusive ones, emphasizing exclusive maybe is too strong, but, overstating certain things.
I mean, like most nations, Ukraine is a multi-ethnic nation. The current president, like me, is Jewish. Jews have lived in Ukraine for hundreds of years. My family were in Lviv for 500 years before 1942. So it's a very long history. Crimean Tatars are a very different ethnicity to the Kievians. So it is by its history and its people a multi-ethnic nation. And I think that the real thing with Ukraine is it's over the time since 1991 has been on the European path. It is part of the Euro-Atlanticist coalition, if you like, or direction. And so the threat to that movement, to that very clear desire from the Ukrainian people, irrespective really of ethnicity, is to go down that path. The threat to that is Russia. Europe maybe took too long to wake up to that threat.
Right.
Yeah.
Are the average British citizens aware of the esteem in which the British are held in this country, not only because of their strong support, but, for example, because of the English language and the move to introduce English as effectively the second language through the state into educational systems, and displace Russian, but have English and not any other language as the most popular and useful at this stage international means of communication?
Well, I'm not sure that the average Brit quite understands how much Ukrainians love the UK and British people, how many Ukrainians over many years have come to the United Kingdom to study at our universities. And particularly since the very strong stance we could, sort of as the first movers on many of the things since the invasion, that has just grown and grown. I think what the British people do understand is that the Ukrainians were under threat in the same way that we were in 1940, and they took Ukrainians into their hearts, into their homes. The Homes to Ukraine scheme was oversubscribed. More people wanted to offer homes to Ukrainians than Ukrainians came. So I think it's a mutual love, and I think those people who've interacted with Ukrainians personally understand that. But I think that there needs to be a wider understanding about how high the esteem of Britain is. And I don't just think it's about the language at all. I think the language is part of that, but we're not the only country in the world that speaks English as our first language.
Of course not, but the Americans do, the Canadians do. But, Britain with its form of English, the Oxford English and what used to be the BBC English, is a standard for all. But do you think that despite economic hardships that all European countries are facing and have been exacerbated by Russia's war and its impact on energy, on markets and all that, do you think that more money could be found in Britain to beef up institutions like the British Council, for example, promoting not so much the British way of life, but British values, language, literature, but the sense of fair play, the sense of critical thinking that is often missing in Eastern Europe?
Well, I always say there's three major forms of British soft power that the government has major influence on or funder of. One is the British Council, as you said. The other is the BBC, and particularly the World Service, which is partly funded by the Foreign Office. And thirdly, our British universities. There are other things, I think, cultural things and other things, but those are the three things. And I don't think that particularly the British Council is that's particularly well known in the UK, that how many millions of people every year all around the world learn English from the British Council, how the British Council shapes education systems in other countries and has done for quite a long time, how it promotes British culture in those countries, and how it helps shape democracies.
What I'm getting at implicitly, without trying to be too blunt, is we know that the Americans have, the Trump administration, let's call it that, has cut USAID, Voice of America, Radio Liberty. Is this not a chance for Britain and other European countries to fill that gap?
I absolutely think it is. And I think that particularly in Europe, not just in Ukraine, but in the Balkans and in other parts of Europe outside the EU, Moldova, for instance, here in Odessa, we have to come through, we don't have to, but mainly we come through Moldova to arrive here. That is absolutely a role the British Council should and could take. And that I do hope that we, bolster our presence in terms of the British Council.
Okay, finally, your parting thoughts. If you were to appear tomorrow, again, at the conclusion, not the opening, what point would you reinforce to the participants of this Odessa Security Forum?
I think my big thing, and I wrote an article about this in the Fabian Review, which is a very esteemed magazine of a left-leaning think tank in the UK, is that we need to have a stronger focus on the Black Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean, as we have done on the Baltic. The United Kingdom formed the Joint Expeditionary Force, of which is part of the entry point for Finland and Sweden into NATO. But we should look at having something similar for the Black Sea and for Black Sea security in future, and not just centered around this particular conflict's invasion, but thinking more broadly about the importance of this region to the whole world and how we need to secure it for generations to come.
I wanted to finish there, but as a footnote, is Turkey on board?
Well, I think that's a conversation to be had with them, but they understand that their role is very, very important and they're a crucial player here. I haven't had a direct conversation with anybody in the Turkish government. I have with one of the Turkish opposition parties, the main opposition party,
yes,
which is our sister party in the Labour Party.
Yes, and the leader of the Conservative Party until recently had a very strong Turkish background.
Absolutely.
Some way down.
Yeah, he was a big supporter of Ukraine as well.
Yes, again. Well, thank you very much, Alex Sobel, British leading MP and chair of the Interparliamentary Group dealing with supporting Ukraine. Thanks for all your efforts on behalf of this country. All the best.
Thank you very much.